Someone gave up something valuable for you. Money that could have been used for something else, a plan that had to be postponed, a personal desire put on hold. All of this to see you smile. Do you realize what that means? This wasn't just any gesture. It was a choice. They chose you. Your happiness was placed above any other need, without fanfare, without asking for anything in return, just to see you well. And now, what do you do with that? Ignore it, thank them, appreciate it, because sacrifices like this are not common, and if someone did this for you, it's because they truly care. Do you see that? You need to understand what this really means. It wasn't just a gift, it wasn't merely a kind gesture. It was a sacrifice. And sacrifices come at a high cost. They cost time, they cost choices, they cost something that may never be recovered. But despite that, this person decided to let go. For you. Now stop and think. How many times have you gone through this without realizing it? How many times have you received something without understanding its weight? Without imagining what had to be left behind for you to have it in your hands? This person didn't tell you, they didn't complain, they didn't make a big deal out of their effort. Because when the sacrifice is sincere, it happens in silence. It doesn't ask for recognition, but that doesn't mean you should ignore it. Think carefully. Maybe it was money that this person had to save for weeks. Maybe it was a plan that had to be postponed. Maybe it was a personal need set aside. And all of this for you. Have you ever asked yourself what this says about you? About how much this person cares? About how much your happiness means to them? Because look, no one makes sacrifices for someone who doesn't matter. And this needs to be taken seriously. What do you do with that? Do you just receive and move on? Do you act like nothing happened? Or do you look that person in the eye and acknowledge what was done? If you didn't recognize it before, recognize it now. Because sacrifices like that are not common. They don't happen all the time. And when they do happen, they need to be valued. Be honest with yourself. Have you valued it like you should have? Maybe you considered this sacrifice to be small. But for that person, it wasn't small. It was an effort. An effort that you don't always see, and sometimes we only realize it too late. Have you stopped to think about this? About how we only appreciate things after we've lost them? But now, there's still time. There's still time to show gratitude, to acknowledge, to value. So don't ignore it. Don't treat it like just another day, just another gift, just another gesture. Because for that person, it wasn't just that. And if one day they stop making that kind of sacrifice, won't you miss it? Now tell me, do you really understand the value of this? If you truly understand the value of this, then it's time to act. It's not enough to just notice. It's not enough to just internally acknowledge. Gratitude can't be too silent. It can't just be a passing thought. If someone made a sacrifice for you, it needs to be reciprocated appropriately, not with empty words, not with an automatic "thank you" said without looking into their eyes, but with presence, with respect, with reciprocity. Because nothing hurts more than sacrificing something for someone and feeling like it didn't mean anything. Have you thought about that? About the weight of indifference? Think about what this person had to give up. It could have been money, it could have been time, it could have even been a desire, a dream. And what if they had chosen something else? If they had prioritized something else instead? But they didn't. They chose you. And the question now is, would you do the same for them? If the situation were reversed, if it were you who needed to make sacrifices, if it were you who had to postpone a plan, set something aside, spend what you couldn't afford, would you do it? If your answer is yes, then prove it. Show it. Because feeling isn't enough. But if your answer is no, then maybe it's time to rethink everything. Because relationships, whatever they may be, cannot be one-sided. They cannot be based solely on what you receive. Have you given in equal measure, or have you only accepted? Have you shown how much this meant to you? Have you reciprocated in some way? Or are you becoming that person who only realizes the value of things when it's too late? Because the truth is this, one day it might be too late. If that person stops making sacrifices for you, it will be because they understood that you didn't appreciate it. So what then? Are you ready to live without that? Are you to look back and realize that you only recognized it when there was nothing left to be done? Because believe me, No one continues to sacrifice indefinitely without something in return. And now I ask you, do you still think this was just a simple gesture? If you still think it was just a simple gesture, then maybe you need to look again, with more attention, with more honesty, because it wasn't. It was a sign, one of those that life places right in front of you, even if you don't always see it at the time. A silent alert that someone truly loves you, that someone chose to put your happiness above their own comfort. But what about you? What do you do with that? Do you realize enough? Do you deep down still act as if this is normal, as if it's just something that happens? The truth is, it doesn't happen to everyone. Not everyone has someone willing to make sacrifices. Not everyone has someone who prioritizes them. But you did. And now? Will you ignore it? Will you let it pass? Will you move on as if it were just another moment in your life? Because if this is the path, be careful. Those who sacrifice for love also feel it when that love is not recognized, and those who feel the pain of not being valued eventually grow tired. Maybe today that person is still willing. Maybe today they still continue to do for you, even without receiving anything in return, but one day that might stop. And when it stops, there will be no going back, because the exhaustion of giving and never receiving destroys any feeling, no matter how strong it is. And if one day you wake up and realize you've lost that, it will be too late. So, look now. Look at the person who made that sacrifice for you. Acknowledge it. Show it. Give back. Don't wait to understand the value of it, only when there's nothing left to be done. The question remains, do you really understand what this means? If you still don't understand, maybe you'll need to feel firsthand what it's like to lose something like this. Because everything that is not valued eventually disappears. Everything taken for granted eventually runs out. And when that person realizes they've always given more than they've received, when they see that their sacrifice has never been recognized as it should be, they'll stop. And then? Are you prepared for that? Prepared to wake up one day and realize that the person who always put you first simply gave up? Because no one can remain invisible forever. It may even seem like it. It may even seem like this person will never tire, never stop doing for you. But that's only because, up until now, they still believe. They believe it's worth it. They believe that at some point you will notice. But when that thread of hope runs out, when they realize they are giving to someone who only takes, what will be left? Silence. And silence is the worst sign. Because it means there's nothing more to be said. There's nothing more to be done. And what about you? Will you wait until it gets to that point? Or will you do something now? Because there is a limit. A point of no return. A moment when even the most patient heart decides to stop insisting. And when that moment arrives, you won't have the chance to give back. So I ask you once again, are you really seeing what's happening? If you're not, look now. Because tomorrow might be too late. If tomorrow is too late, you're going to regret it. And regret doesn't change the past. It doesn't undo oversights. It doesn't rebuild what has been broken by time and indifference. Tomorrow, when that person is no longer willing, when they no longer make sacrifices for you, what will be left? The emptiness, the silence of someone who once gave up something important for you, but who realized they never held the same place in your life. And do you know what the worst part is? There will be nothing you can do, because words don't heal deep wounds. Apologies can't bring back feelings that died from a lack of recognition. So then, are you going to wait until you feel the weight of that absence? Or are you going to act now? Because now, there is still time. Right now, that person is still there. They still believe, they still have the strength to do for you. But what are you doing for them? Because love doesn't survive on its own. Care needs to be reciprocal. Gratitude must be expressed, not just felt. If someone has made a sacrifice for you, that person deserves to know that you see it, that you value it, that you understand what was done. It's not enough to just think. It's not enough to reflect. You need to show it. So look around. Think of who, even without saying anything, has already given up something for you. And do something before it's too late. Now tell me, are you really going to let the chance to appreciate this person pass before it's too late? If you let this chance pass, don't fool yourself. One day, you'll feel the absence. You'll look back and realize the details you ignored, the gestures you overlooked, the sacrifices you didn't see. And when that awareness arrives, it will weigh heavily, because there's no greater pain than realizing too late how important someone was, how much someone did for you without asking for anything in return, and how you could have done something simple. Acknowledge them, but it's not too late yet. There are still glances searching for you. There are still gestures waiting for a modicum of recognition. There's still a presence that hasn't given up. But for how long? How long will this person insist without feeling any reciprocity? How long will they sacrifice something for you without so much as hearing a "I know what you did for me"? Because make no mistake, it's not about money. It's not about things. It's about effort. It's about a choice that was made by you. But would you do the same? If the answer is yes, then prove it. If the answer is no, then maybe you need to rethink everything you're doing. Because no one can be a priority forever if they never give back. And one day when that person finally understands this and decides to move on without looking back, you will understand too. But it will be too late. So I ask again, what will you do with this opportunity now? If you ignore this opportunity now, later it won't help to want to turn back time. Because when someone gets tired of being invisible, of just being someone who gives without receiving, there's no turning back. You can try to reach out, you can try to explain, you can even say that you understand now. But what's the point in realizing too late, after the weariness has won? That person who made a sacrifice for you may have waited, may have insisted, may have believed. But even the strongest patience has its limits. And if that limit is crossed, you will feel the absence. And absence hurts, because at first it may seem like everything is the same. But little by little, that person's silence will become deafening. The absence of small gestures and sacrifices that once were made without you noticing will create a void that no one else can fill in the same way. And you will understand. Understanding that what seemed guaranteed was never truly so, understanding that what was done for you was not an obligation, but a choice. And that this choice could have been different. But now the choice is in your hands. You can continue to ignore it. You can continue to accept without showing appreciation. Or you can act now, speak, show, give back. Before the sacrifice turns into resignation, before love becomes just a memory. Because once someone leaves, there's no point in trying to reclaim what has already died along the way. So, for the last time I ask, will you wait to lose in order to understand the value of this? If you wait to lose to understand, then you are signing your own regret. Because there is no greater pain than looking back and realizing you had every chance to appreciate someone, but you did nothing. That you received love in a rare, genuine, unconditional way, and still you didn't care. That there was someone willing to give up something important for you, and you simply accepted it as if it were a duty. But now pay attention. No one is obligated to sacrifice for you. It was a choice, it was a commitment, it was love. And love that isn't acknowledged turns into resignation. The day this person realizes you never valued them will be the day you see them walking away without looking back. And no, it won't be in an explosive manner, it will be silent. It will be that day when you notice the small gestures have disappeared, when the care has diminished, when you are no longer their priority. And in that moment, everything you took for granted, everything you ignored, everything that seemed so secure, will come to an end. And then when you try to change, when you want to show what you never showed, it may be too late, because a wounded heart doesn't wait. And I ask you with all seriousness, do you really need to lose in order to learn the value of something? Because if that's the path you choose, the pain of loss will be unavoidable. If you need to lose to learn, then you've already lost more than you realize. Because when someone stops sacrificing for you, they don't turn back. The exhaustion of giving without receiving is irreversible. And then when you realize it, when you feel the silence and the absence of gestures that once seemed small, it will be too late. The only choice you have is right now. Right now, while this person is still here. Right now, while there's still time to recognize, to show, to reciprocate. Don't wait for emptiness. Don't wait for absence. Don't wait to miss someone to realize the value that's always been there. If someone has made a sacrifice for you, if they've given something up to see you happy, appreciate it. Don't put it off. Say it. Show it. Return the favor. And if this message resonates with you, comment below. I recognize and appreciate those who do for me. Feel free to leave a like so that this message reaches more people. And if you aren't subscribed yet, subscribe now, because you don't want to miss reflections like this.